What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
Before I get into this, it's really hard to admit that I allowed my ex-fiance to treat me like this. And not even not even someone I was dating. I was fianced. Thank you for the emotional support. Okay, so we would sometimes watch a movie and eat dinner as you do, but I was never allowed to sit on the couch and eat because he perceived me as more clumsy than him. So I had to sit on the floor on what he called an eating blanket. And occasionally if he wasn't home, I would eat a bowl of cereal while I watched a dumb Netflix show, but I would set up the blanket so if I heard him come home, I could quickly jump to it and he wouldn't know that I had broken the rule. The moral of this story is if someone treats you like a child, it's not because they want a partner, it's because they want someone they can dominate. And while I acknowledge it's hard to get out from the thumb of someone's emotional manipulation at the end of the day, it was up to me to set that boundary. It was up to me not to sit on the fucking blanket. But I did. Oy.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
Okay, so I was talking to this dude that was 10 years older than me, and we used to talk on the phone a lot. And then one day I called him and he didn't answer, and the voicemail was, "Thank you for calling the Text Now subscriber." And I was like, what grown man in his mid-30s is using Text Now to communicate with me? Is he married? Am I a secret, or am I a secret and he's married? Which one is it? So I asked, and he's like, well, I just don't feel like it's necessary to pay for a phone bill when I have this app, and all I have to do is be connected to Wi-Fi and blah, 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 right? I don't make any judgments because I've used Text Now before because my mom's crazy and she, blocked a few people from my phone. So I just use Text Now to contact them, The next red flag, we go and hang out. Now we've planned this days in advance. One, I have to go and pick him up because his sister apparently has his Audi. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll go pick you up. Where do you live? Oh, come and pick me up from my friend. So I'm not only don't you have your car, but I'm picking you up from a friend's, and I'm picking you up from a friend's. Okay, me. So anyways, I go and pick him up and I'm like, I'm hungry. We should go and eat. Oh, I didn't bring my wallet. Oh, that sucks. I'm going to Chick-fil-A. So I get to the Chick-fil-A line. I order my meal and he's like, oh, and may I have a peach milkshake, ma'am? And I was like, oh, I thought you forgot your wallet. And he was like, oh, please. This is not McDonald's. This is Chick-fil-A. Okay. Their milkshakes are not cheap. Okay. They are on the level of Starbucks at that point. Stuff is $5. Okay. I'm already annoyed that you came and you didn't bring your wallet. Who goes out somewhere without a wallet? You don't have no documentation or form of payment. Who? It doesn't make sense. So the next red flag is when we went to the mall together. And guess what, y'all? Yes, he forgot his wallet. But I'm not fazed because I know I got money to get me something to eat. Okay. I'm not stressing. So as we're walking around, he's like, oh, I love Gucci. I love the Gucci store. That's my store, blah, blah, blah. Nothing touches his body but Gucci. And I'm like, dude, you make $14.50. I have never seen this Audi car. You live with your sister and her 2 kids, and you don't ever have your wallet, and you refuse to pay a phone bill because you don't feel like it's necessary. I digress. Next red flag, he calls me from a random number that so happens to be this is his new phone. I said, oh, okay, you finally got a phone bill. Oh, no, my homegirl's paying for it. What? Let's continue. So one day I asked him if he wanted to go to this thing with me, and his response was, yes, as long as you pay for my haircut, which is about $65 or so. I said, what? He was like, yeah, anytime a girl wants me to go somewhere, I make them pay for my haircut. Sir, you got the wrong chick, okay? I am not a sugar mama.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
This may seem really basic, but I really wish that somebody had pointed it out to me far earlier in my life. I would say the time that he said something incredibly hurtful, demeaning, and disrespectful that hurt my feelings in a big way, and I waited till the next day to talk to him about it calmly and affectionately and sweetly and let him know that he had hurt my feelings, and comments like that are hurtful, and I got yelled at and met with rage and told that I was too sensitive. Altogether now, that's gaslighting. If you calmly and effectively state your needs or your hurt and the other person does nothing about it, but get mad at you for it, they are not in that relationship for you. They don't care about you. They are only in it for themselves, and they will continue to do that to you until you are a shell of a person. Trust me. If you get in trouble for being a person, for having feelings and having needs, just run. Just run. Love you.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
That they use their potential and their idealistic self as a way to try to distract me from who they currently were. Let's talk about it. When we discuss not falling for potential, we tend to kind of talk about how we project the potential we see in somebody else onto that person. But we don't speak on how someone can use their own potential as a way to try to distract you from how they currently are behaving. They spoke a lot about who they wanted to be, how they wanted to behave, how they wanted to care for me and provide for me, and how they were working hard and on the pathway to do just that. And as great as it sounded, who they currently were was absolutely none of that. So essentially it was a matter of, I'm nowhere near the person you deserve to be with. However, I'm working towards it and will eventually be that person one day in the near future. Maybe, possibly. And not gonna lie, at first, I did fall for it. Over time, I began to realize and accept that who they were describing didn't currently exist. And who they currently were wasn't good for me. I had no idea how long it would take for them to become that person, so I left.
So this is probably going to be longer than 60 seconds, but I'll do my best. If you have a short attention span, you have been warned. So I'm hanging out with my best friend and I get a DM from this guy and I look at his profile and it turns out that they are mutual friends. So I asked her, does he check out with the basic criteria that I need in order to date someone? And she says yes. So I ask him and he confirms all the things that she says. And I'm like, cool, I'm single, you single, let's do it. So he asked me to hang out and I'm like, sure, that's no problem. Okay, only caveat is his car is in the shop, so I have to come pick him up, red flag. So he comes over to my apartment, which I'm not uncomfortable with because he is friends with my best friend. And also we live in a small town. So if something happened to me, it's going to go right to your ass quickly. So the first chill session was okay. Didn't stay long. Just chopped it up and he left. Cool. So then he asked, can we hang out again that weekend? Sure, I don't have no problem with that. So he falls asleep in my apartment and wakes up the next day and decides to call out of work. And I'm like, all right. I think this is on like a Saturday morning, so we go get groceries, gas, and he pays my electric bill. So I'm like, okay, but also okay. I'm young, y'all. I'm like 22. So one night turns into several nights and I'm like, all right, so it's only one name on this list. When you going home, little boy? And as I'm asking him that, I'm like, also, how have you been brushing your teeth? Oh my God, he was using my fucking toothbrush. So like, I was passive, but now you got to go. So he leaves and then he starts popping up at my job, red flag, and at my school, red flag, and trying to catch me in traffic, red flag. Like for somebody that didn't have a car, this man was mobile. So I already know that I'm done, but you know how you have to do as a woman with men. You kind of have to put distance between you and let it like fizzle out versus just making a quick exit because it's literally dangerous sometimes. Oh, I forgot to mention that when I initially tried to get rid of him after he called out of work for the second time, I was like, yeah, I have to go to school and I have to go to work, so you should probably go home. He was like, oh no, I could just drop you off and I could just keep your car and come pick you up. You could do what? You could do what? I'm a pass, boo-boo. Marinated on it after the fact, after he gave me the worst date in the world. So we're done. All that calling out of work to prime me to live off of me has caught up with him, and now he has no money. And I'm especially like, you can't even take care of yourself at this point. No, thank you. To take me on a date as closure, which is the worst date I have ever been on. And if y'all want to hear about it, just let me know in the comments because I love telling this damn story because it was just so tragic. Months later, I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see him at a football game with a familiar shirt on. It is my high school senior t-shirt. Not only was he using my toothbrush, this man was taking my motherfucking clothes. Don't ignore them red flags, please.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
I stupidly went on 3 different dates with this guy and they basically all went this same way. A little bit of backstory is I'm a bit of a picky eater to the point where I always look at the restaurant menu ahead of time to make sure that there's stuff on there that I want to eat. He also knew that. I get to the bar about 15 minutes early, so I decide to have a glass of wine at the bar. 3 glasses of wine later, he finally arrived. We sit down and I look for the menu and he goes, oh, don't worry about that. I've already ordered ahead. The food arrives and it's squid pasta with tripe and this carrot puree with capers. I hate tripe. And capers. So I'm pushing the food around my plate just to make it look like I ate it. And eventually he notices, since he's been spending the entire time talking about how lucky I should feel, seeing that he is a project manager and I'm just a lowly project coordinator. I tell him the truth and then I'm going to order something else. And he tells me I'm not paying for anything else, in which I informed him I have my own money. Then he tells me that women aren't allowed to pay for their own food when they're with him.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
I've told some stories about recording studio guy. Here's another one. We'd been together for a few months, and I felt like things were going really great. I was calling him my boyfriend. We'd been physically intimate. We were having a really good time. So one night we're hanging out. He gets a phone call. He looks at the caller ID and says, I have to take this, and then goes into the sound booth. The soundproof sound booth. He's in there for like 45 minutes, and when he finally comes out, he is visibly agitated. So I ask him, what's wrong? He paces around for a little bit. Then he turns to me and says, we're friends, right? He explains that there was a call from a woman that we both knew, who, unbeknownst to me, he had been seeing for about a month, and she was calling to break it off with him. His feelings were very hurt, and he wanted to be consoled. I stayed with him for a year.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
People let you know early on that they're not considerate, and you need to look out for these little things. And I think texting etiquette fucks with us. We're like, who am I to think that they, are busy and they can just, they have a life of their own, whatever. No, but if it's around 5 p.m. on a Friday and that person that knows that you like them texts you like, hey, what are you doing tonight? And you answer in great detail and you tell them where you're going and with who, and they're more than welcome, and they don't answer. That is so inconsiderate. Because they know how you feel. They know you're excited. And people don't understand how stressful the weekends can be when you like somebody and you don't know if they like you. Just don't make me feel like I did something wrong for just being myself. I don't want to feel bad for being nice to you. Be considerate. Because I don't have to be nice to you.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
She liked me too much, too soon. Hear me out. I had just started to see this girl, and she was enamored with me immediately. I even told the girl who cuts my hair, I was like, she likes me so much. We haven't even known each other that long. And she's like, do you have a real problem with her liking you this much? And I was like, okay, maybe you're right. And the first time I stayed the night, she has 2 kids. The kids got up before I do. I was like, oh, should I try and sneak out? And she's like, no, it's fine. We'll just say that you're my friend. It had been 2 weeks. I eventually ended up breaking my lease, moving in with her. I was there all the time anyway, and her roommate moved out. It was a smart move. One day she gets really upset about something, and she looks at me and starts screaming. She's like, you weren't supposed to see this. What? Anyway, the anniversary of her and her next boyfriend, the cashier that she managed that I wasn't supposed to worry about, is the same week I moved out. She didn't want me. She wanted someone.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
I have plenty of stories about my ex-wife and her toxic as fuck family, but this is the first red flag. It was 2 months into our relationship. I went back home with her for Thanksgiving to meet her family in person for the very first time. We got along great. Everything was going well. We all had a few drinks. And me and my ex-wife decided it was time for us to go to bed. So we go to bed, we say goodnight, and then as we're getting ready for bed, her mother comes into our room without knocking, comes into our room and strips my ex-wife naked, like she's a baby. Strips her naked, tucks her into bed naked next to me. I'm weirded out, and I'm like, that was weird. My ex-wife, no, it's not weird. It's totally normal. Anyway, we decide to move on with our night. We start making out, and then her mother comes back into the room without knocking and goes, you girls, and then slowly exits. What the fuck?
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
I moved back to my hometown about 2 years after getting sober and got a job at a little coffee shop and was a barista. There's this guy that came in every morning and he caught my eye right away. He was very well-spoken, articulate. We had a lot of things in common, and he was gorgeous. He gave me butterflies, and I hadn't had butterflies in a really long time. He made up some silly excuse one day to ask me for my number, and of course I was just beside myself. We texted for a while, and he finally asked me out. I was really excited for this date. We were meeting at his house, and then we were going to go out to eat. And I texted him and told him I was outside, and he asked me to come upstairs real quick. He wasn't ready yet. I really didn't want to, but I said, okay, I wasn't going to sit out in the parking lot. And I walked up to his apartment, knocked on the door, and he opened up the door. When we made eye contact, my stomach flipped. I don't know why. There was something that just made me uncomfortable, and I knew immediately that it was a wrong fit. But of course I didn't listen, and things went downhill from there. Red flag after red flag after red flag.
Okay. Jeez.
So for context, my most recent ex, me and him spent our drug addiction together and life was a fucking chaos. He was doing like 4 years in prison. So to see a guy who was educated, had his own apartment, drove a really nice car, was a therapist, I was just like, what? My bar was low at the time. So, he far exceeded the things that I ever expected to be in a relationship with. I was at the beginning of all of the work I was about to do. Because let me tell you what, my red flag sniffer is on point these days. So on our first date, he asked me if it would make me uncomfortable if he got a drink. Which, just because I'm sober, if someone can handle their alcohol, I'm fine if you have a drink here and there. But on our first date? Okay. He proceeded to get shit-face wasted. And it got weird. And I still went on another date with him. I was so excited to have something of substance in my life that I didn't realize this wasn't it. Come to find out he was addicted to Adderalls and snorted one right in front of me later, and that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Ladies, listen to the red flags.
Tell me you've been single a long time without telling me you've been single a long time.
When people ask if I'm in a relationship with anyone, I say, yeah, with Jesus. You know, because he's enough for me. He's all I need.
Name a job where the amount of work and the amount of pay do not match.
Oh, that's easy. Being a Section 8 real estate investor, I might, on a good week, put in 5 hours worth of work if I'm lucky. That's normally just signing off documents such as new HVAC installations or roofing installations. And for that amount of work that I put in, Section 8 will send me over $400,000 per month in rental payments for my tenants. Obviously, about 60% of that is actually passive cash flow. The other 40% goes to the bank and mortgages and taxes and insurance. But for the amount of work that I do and the amount of pay that they pay me each month, it's very not matching up.